Hello and welcome to episode 241 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is August 12th, 2024. Today, both pieces I'm wearing for the first time on the podcast episode, even though one of them is quite old, but the other one is brand new. So I'll start with the shawl as usual. And this is a crochet triangular shawl that I crocheted about at least 14 years ago, probably 15 or 16 years ago. And this was one of the first first models that I knit or crocheted for Wollerödel when I first worked there. And this was not a shop window display model, but this was just something that my boss wanted to have so that we could show that you could use this crochet yarn, the cotton yarn, not only for like placemats or things like that, but that you could crochet a shawl. And that's why she wanted me to make that so we could display it inside the shop. And I remember when she first gave me the yarn and it said something like needle 2 to 3 millimeters, something like that. I went with a 3 millimeter needle because I tend to crochet fairly tightly. And I did just the couple of rows. And then she said, oh, that's way too tight. You have to use a bigger needle. So I used the 3.5 millimeter needle and she still said, oh, that's too tight. So I crocheted this with a 4 millimeter needle, even though this is very fine crochet yarn, very fine cotton yarn. But this gives the shawl the softness that it needs. If it's crocheted too tight and it sort of stands up by itself, you can't really wrap it around yourself and it wouldn't be comfortable to wear. So that was one of my first lessons in not always following the needle size that's recommended on a yarn. And then you start this shawl at the top middle bit, and then with every row the triangle grows, and you can basically crochet to any size you want depending on how much yarn and how much patience you have. I remember that I felt it takes forever. And while I was crocheting it, my sister kept saying, oh, this is so nice. And she really likes it. And back then she hardly ever crocheted. And so I knew she would never do it for herself, make it for herself. So I decided to give it to her. But I told my colleagues in the shop not to tell her. So I told her I have to crochet it for the shop. And it'll be displayed there for quite some time. And then I'll see And then I sort of hinted at wearing it myself. But as soon as I got it back from the shop, I gave it to her. And she's been wearing it ever since. And then some time ago, she realized that she sort of stopped wearing it. She wasn't into it that much anymore. So she asked me if I wanted to have it. And I said, yes, please. And so I got it back. And now I can wear it. And this was something that I could actually wear with this pink top. And I think it also goes nicely with the skirt that I'm wearing. And because I found that all the pink shawls and loops and things that I have, they were always a little bit different pink from this top, so I couldn't wear them together. So in the end, I decided to use the grey one that had been wanting to show on the podcast anyway. So today I'm dressed completely in crochet. That doesn't happen very often. Yeah, so that's a shawl. And the top, of course, you saw last week as my finished object. And you've seen me crochet it the last couple of weeks. It's basically a very simple top. You just crochet 2 squares. You can crochet a normal granny square. I crocheted 2 spiral granny squares. So the only problem with a spiral granny square is that you can't finish the round properly. So what I did is I finished by just doing 1 double crochet at the edge. I did that with both pieces, and I decided to have that bit at the lower edge. I could have sewn it together completely and it wouldn't have been noticeable at all, I think. But I quite like the idea to have a little slit. So it's wide enough and I think it looks nice. I think it's quite funny the way the shoulders go out like this. I hadn't really expected that. But I think that's funny too. That's nice too. It's easy to wear now. Today it's a really warm day. I'm not really wearing a lot underneath, but I could also wear a long sleeve t-shirt underneath or a blouse or something. So I think it's very versatile, and you can wear it many different ways. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. I have one finished object and one new project. So today things even out nicely. And my finished object, again, no surprise, is the hat I was knitting as part of the knit-along I was doing on this channel, the Haramaki and Reversible hat knit-along. And this is a reversible hat. You can maybe tell that this is a different colorway than the rest of the hat. And if I fold it down, this is one of the colors I was using. And then if I turn it inside out, this was the other color I was using. So I could also wear this hat this way. And if I don't fold the brim, it's just a bit of a longer hat that you can fold down like this. Then you can just show one side, or I could just fold the edge up, and then I'd have this color hat with a brighter and lighter brim. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. It does fit me. It's a bit shorter than I wanted it, as usual. I tend to get impatient, and also it has fewer stitches than one of the other hats that I knit, and I was comparing this hat to that hat, and because this has fewer stitches, I have to pull it, stretch it a bit more than the other one, and that's why it gets ever so slightly shorter. With this hat, for the first time, I think I actually sewed both pieces together. So I sewed both the beginning and the end together, so it sits nicely. I don't have to worry about where to fold it, and yeah, so the only thing that I'm not sure about right now is whether to keep the hat or give it away. We'll see about that. Maybe I'll knit another one with more stitches at some point, but not right now. Yeah, so this is my finished object for today. Then on to works in progress. Just put the hat back on the glass head. Yep. Make sure it stays nice and warm. Okay, then on to works in progress, and as usual, I'll start with the socks, but with the 4 pairs of socks that I'm knitting at the moment, I actually did not continue knitting on 2 of them. So I did not knit on the 2 world socks. I'm supposed to start with the heel, and I somehow never had the time. I didn't find the time to really sit down and concentrate on that. And it's the same thing with Stephen West's surprise Sockalong with the Color Opportunity socks. I have to pick up stitches at the heel flap and knit the sole of the sock, and both socks just needed more concentration that I had somehow the last week. But I certainly continued knitting on the very simple vanilla sock that I'm knitting for my nephew. So this was the kind of knitting that I had more time for this past week, and I knit quite a bit of the foot of the second sock. It's his birthday this week, so if I'd finished it, I could have given the socks to him for his birthday. But he's a big boy, so I'll try and finish them this week, and then I can give them to him next week. That should still be okay as his birthday present. And there's not that much more to knit, so I think chances are good I get this finished this week, but it's not a real rush. If I take one more week, it's still fine, and my nephew is still going to enjoy his socks. That's that. And the other sock I'm knitting are the Bellflower sock. That's a bonus pattern from the Sock Madness. It's another of the Rainforest colorways from this year, where for the 20-year anniversary, they are repeating colorways, something MKal usually never does. But these are old colorways that came back, both this colorway and the one I'm showing you now. And I continue knitting, and I put it on a sock blocker so you can see the pattern a bit more clearly. So it's these flowers that are sort of hang down like this. And last time I think I'd started with the second flower, but I've now I think finished with the second flower, whatever. And I've started with it with the gusset increases. So I haven't done too many yet, but there are some increases here and a few increases here. The gusset increases actually get a pattern, so there'll be a new pattern in between the top of the foot and the sole, starting in a few rounds. So this is something I do have to concentrate on, but I just have to follow the charts. I don't have to pick up stitches and I don't have to make decisions and things like that. So I try to get on with that sock. And those were the two socks that I knit on last week. And now I have the new cast on for this week because it's a small project with sock yarn on double pointed needles. And that's the new Mystery Gnome by Sarah Shearer. So Sarah Shearer wrote a book. I'm pretty sure you've heard about it. I think I've talked about it. It's the Gnomes of the Grimblewood, I think, and I think it comes out in September. And Sarah now decided to have a mystery knit along for one of the gnomes out of the book. So the way I understand it, there are 4 gnomes in the book that you can knit the way she wrote them, and then there are 4 gnomes that have mix and match hats and bodies and beards and things like that. So one of those she's giving away for free because this is her first free mystery knit along, and you can sign up on a page that I think is called Bookmarked, but you can click through from either her Ravelry page or her homepage to find out about that. And last week the first clue came out, and the second I think will come out this week. But first to my color choice. So the colors that she advises you to use are white, gold and red. So white was easy. And then with the gold, I don't really have gold yarn, but I thought if I use something yellow or orange, that should be fine. So I picked this yarn. And then for the red, at first I thought I was going to go with this yarn, which is a solid color red. And at first I thought there were going to be cables in the hat, in the body, because there are cables in the overview with which techniques are used. But then she said somewhere that that list is the complete list from the book. So this mystery gnome doesn't have to have cables. Sorry. And then I decided if there are no cables, if it's a fairly simple body, then I will probably use this yarn, which is the leftover yarn, opal yarn, with red and pink and grey and a little bit of white and yellow. And I think they look quite nicely together. And yeah, so we'll see what the pattern is like, and then I'll decide which yarn to use. And now I'll show you the hat that came out last week. If you don't want to see it, look away now. This is the tiny simple hat for this mystery gnome. Her name is Gnatty, and yeah, and I quite like it because this is fairly simple. I decided not to use a solid color, but just have those few speckles in there. And now I'm looking forward to clue 2. That was it. Not a lot happened yet, but I just couldn't knit more because, yeah, I'm waiting for clue 2. Then I have the Musterschlacht, the pattern battle from the Opal Abo, the Opal subscription yarn, where we get 4 balls of 4-ply sock yarn, and we don't know what the colors are going to be, and one from each parcel is chosen for the pattern battle, and there everybody uses the same colorway but has to pick a different pattern. And I chose the slippery cowl out of the book Knit Happy with Self-Striping Yarn by Telly Bean Knits. And I think last week I said something like this was knit from top to bottom, but of course this was knit bottom up. So the first part of the cowl you cast on at the lower edge and you knit up. and then you pick up stitches on one side and knit sideways in the same pattern, but then the stripes and the slip stitches go in a different direction. It's knit with decreases, and I finished this one, and now I've picked up stitches on the other side of the first piece, and now I'm repeating the same pattern but with the decreases on this side, and then I have this long straight edge on the top of the cowl, which is probably folded inside, and then so this is sort of the way the cowl is going to look once it's finished. Yep, I'm still enjoying watching the slip stitches and the stripes, and it's a fairly simple knit that I can pick up every now and then without having to think too much, but I have to concentrate a little bit. It's not like the vanilla sock. Yeah, so that's it for the small projects. Now on to the garments that I'm knitting, and there the only thing I'm not showing again is the skirt again, but at some point I will pick it up. But I continued knitting on the Lanatus pullover, which is the all over colorwork pullover I'm knitting. Last week I showed you the finished first sleeve, and then I picked up the stitches for the second sleeve and I knit the first couple of patterns. So I'm still in the third pattern, but I'm using the same patterns that I used on this sleeve, but of course the colors come out completely differently. So this is always interesting to see. And by the way, what's really interesting is that I am still on my first ball of yarn, of colorful yarn. So this is one of the new Hundertwasser colorways, and for the whole pullover, yeah, it's not too big, and I know the sleeves are fairly tight, but still, I think this is a lot of knitting from 100-gram ball of yarn. So that's really fascinating. I'm on the second ball of the main color yarn, but still, I think this is quite amazing. And then the next garment is the Mamaki dress, and I'm knitting that from a cone that where I picked the different strands of yarn myself, and then they were wound on one cone, and that was a long time ago. But now I am knitting the Mamaki dress by Nicolor. I'm really happy with how this is coming along, and now I have the back and front are almost as long as the sleeves. Last week I think I was sort of at the height of the before the ribbing, and now I've almost the same length as the sleeve. So this is the only way that you can tell that this is growing, and by the fact that I have to stretch more to hold it up. Yeah, this is a fairly mindless knit. All I have to concentrate on are the decreases and increases, and yeah, but that's fairly simple, and I'm still continue knitting on this, looking forward to finishing it at some point. But with both those projects, I'm not in a hurry because I couldn't wear them at the moment anyway, because it's way too warm to wear them. So I'll just enjoy the process of knitting on them and not hurrying too much. The next pullover though, with the next two projects, I finished one ball of yarn, so that's interesting. So the next project is the Vinahop, which is another project by Nicolor. I just love her patterns. And I finished the first 50-gram ball of fingering weight alpaca yarn by Hansa Farm. And I put in a long cable so it's easier to show. So you start with the back of the pullover, and then at a certain point you cast on stitches for the front, and then you knit a circular yoke. And I've added, since last week, I think I've added one stripe of stockinette and then one new knit pearl pattern, which is I've almost finished that stripe. Then I have to do increases again and then another stockinette stripe. But I am thinking that before I do that, with the next ball of yarn, I think I'm going to pick up stitches and knit the ribbing first. So if you have a neckline without the ribbing, sometimes it's a bit wider and it can be pulled in a little bit with the ribbing. So if I do the ribbing first, I can make sure that the yoke then actually has the proper size to fit me. So if I did it without the ribbing, there there is a chance that I would pull it down too much. And then once I put the ribbing in, it'll come back up and then it might get too tight. I don't want the pullover too tight, but I don't want it too wide either. So I'm not 100% sure how I want the dress. Nicolo, of course, gives clues how to measure your yoke to decide when to start, when to put the sleeve stitches on hold. But she usually has her pullovers fairly wide, and sometimes that's too wide for me. So I will probably try and make my own decision. But I think that's easier to do once I have the ribbing in the neck. So that's the next step that I want to do with this pullover. And the next garment, the last garment that I'm going to show today, is the black cotton cardigan that I had as a new project last week. And there also I finished, almost finished the first 50-gram ball of yarn, but this won't be enough for a whole row, so I stopped there because it's easier to show if you're not in the middle of the row. So I finished the first complete pattern repeat in the height. So this is exactly one pattern repeat, and I almost managed to do 1.5 pattern repeats plus ribbing with the first 50-gram ball of Catania cotton yarn by Schachenmeier. And I'm really happy with how this looks. So this is actually wider than the white cardigan that I wore last week in the podcast. And if I sort of pull on it a little bit, pretending that I'm blocking it, it's also going to be a bit longer. So right now I'm fairly confident that with 2 pattern repeats in the height, it'd be a perfect place to cast on the sleeve stitches. And then I'm hoping that 1.5 pattern repeats in the height will be enough for the sleeve width, because I'm pretty sure that 2 pattern repeats would be too wide. And I want to stop at either the whole pattern repeat or half pattern repeat on the shoulder so that the patterns, that's a good point to sort of mirror the front half to the back half. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, really happy with this. With this, I'm trying to knit as much and as quickly as possible because I'd love to wear this summer. As soon as I finish this, I can wear it because this is a summer garment. So I'm really, I'm not rushing too much. I do want to knit on the other projects as well, but this is one that's getting a lot of love and attention at the moment. Yeah, and that brings me to the shawls. I am knitting 2 mystery shawls at the moment. And the first one is the Abloom mystery shawl, which isn't a mystery anymore, I think. And I'm really sad to be repeating myself. I still haven't finished clue 1, but it's only 11 more rows. So I've done more than half of the last pattern repeat, chart repeat. Not a big difference to last week. I did, more than 11 rows. I don't remember. But yeah, very hopeful I'll finish the first clue this week. I'd love to start the second one. All the other clues, I think, have a lot fewer rows than the first clue had. But of course, they have more stitches and I think, and I hope, more beads. So it doesn't mean I'll be really fast, but I think there'd be more difference. There's more things changing, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then the second mystery knit along, of course, is the Goff's Place mystery shawl by Kate Davies. And there, I thought the last clue would come out last week, but I was mistaken. So I was waiting for the clue all of Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's when I realized that the clues don't come out in the second week of a month, but the second Tuesday or Wednesday of a month. And last week was the first Tuesday and Wednesday of the month. So the last clue should come out either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So that gave me time to finish clue 3. And I have to admit, I'm not quite finished, but almost. So I'm showing it now in case you want to look away. But I think most of you now know that this is clue 1. And most of you will have either seen or made clue 2. Oopsie daisy. And then clue 4. Last week I showed you the first color and then the second stripe, and then I was knitting on the third, and I finished the fourth, and I'm in the middle of doing the fifth stripe of this clue, and now I'm trying to hold it up in a way that sort of shows it more nicely. Yeah, so this is clue 4, and I think this is really beautiful. I love the way this looks. Yeah, so you can see I always put a marker where I have to turn for the next short row. So this marker has to move almost all the way here, and then I'll have finished the short rows, and then I have to cast off the stitches, and then I'll be done with this clue. And I'm pretty confident I can finish it either tonight or tomorrow, and I should be set for clue 4 as soon as it drops. And I'm so excited to see how she's going to finish this off. I'll just quickly show it as the complete thing. So it's already fairly big, and you could imagine this as a shawl just the way it is. So this could be the middle, and then these could be the two sides, one like this and one like that. But then there's the funny fact that there are stitches on this side of clue 1, which is really interesting, and I have no idea what she's planning to do with those stitches and with the other edges and with the rest of the yarn. Really interesting. I love it. I love the yarn. It's most of it is, oopsie, I think I put my arm through the thing holding my stitches. Oops, sorry about that. Most of it is pure alpaca by Hansa Farm in their fingering weight version. The white one is the old sports weight that they used to have, and the pink is the alpaca silk mix that they sell. And I love the way the things, the colors play together and the yarns play together. So really, really enjoying this project a lot. Okay, now that brings me to my blanket or shawl blanket, small blanket, huge shawl, whatever, that I've been knitting forever now, the All Projects Memory Blanket. And I'm really happy to say that I added a few more squares to that. So last week, I think those were the last 3 squares that I showed you, and I added 4 more squares. Yeah, so I think these were socks for my sister. Don't really remember what I made with this. I'd have to check my Ravelry page, but I remember these 2 colors. These were 2 rainforest colors from 2 different years, but I love the way they look together. So I used those colors in the 6-ply yarn to crochet a cardigan for myself, and I used the 4-ply of these colors to crochet a tiny cardigan for my doll, as to show how I used the small cardigan for the tutorial video, and then I used those 2 yarns to knit a hexagon cardigan, and I gave that to friends for their little baby that was born this year. So that's that. Now I have to do 3 more squares to finish this row of squares, and then at least 2 more rows, and then I'll try it on, look at it, and right now I'm sort of debating that I may want to have 16 rows instead of 15. But I'll decide that as soon as the 15 are done. And for one, I'll have a look at what it looks like, and also if I'm still motivated to go on knitting. We'll see about that. So that's a blanket. And then we come to the last project for today, and that's the crochet along that we're doing for the spiral granny squares. And this was the first project that I crocheted in this crochet along with the spiral squares for the summer top. And the next project that I've now started, I already showed you last week, that that the middle of this square was one of the I was trying out how to do the spirals, and then I started adding in some leftover yarn. So I finished the ball that I was working with last week, and then I finished the next leftover yarn, and now I'm at this Hundertwasser colorway that I'm adding around, and then I'll work my way through the leftover yarn that I showed you last week. And so far I'm really happy. It's very bright, very colorful. It's color-wise, it's the complete opposite to the last big granny square shawl that I crocheted out of the alpaca yarn, and that's what I wanted. So I'm really happy with this, and yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing this project as well. So that was everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!